out. Millions of workers may soon be told to get back to the workplace amid growing fears that city centre businesses who rely on commuters and office workers could go bankrupt.
From August the 1st, employers will have more freedom to decide whether or not their staff should return to the office. But should you or your boss have the final say on whether you go back? Joining us now is businesswoman and interviewer on The Apprentice, Linda Plant, who says if you are fit and healthy, you should return to your workplace, and businesswoman Paris Petgrave, who says working from home makes people more efficient. Good morning to both of you. Thanks for joining us. Linda, let's start with you, because undoubtedly there is a real need to get people back into cities, get back into offices to start getting the economy going. However, that has to be balanced with people's fear about going back to work and their own safety.
Well, I think the employer, first of all, must take into consideration the employee. They must communicate. There must be good communication and good collaboration. And everything I'm going to say, we have to caveat with people who may have suffered through COVID. These people must be taken into consideration. But at the end of the day, we have to get back to normality. We have to create what we had before. Businesses, small businesses, how are they going to thrive and survive if our cities and people are not working? The small offices. What about the people who, when you go into work, you bounce ideas off each other? Creativity, collaboration means creativity. What are the long-term effects of people working from home in an isolated environment? We don't know an employer does not know the mental health effects that this may have. And most of all, if our businesses, if as an employer, you can't survive your business, how is our economy going to survive and thrive? We have to get our people back to work. And I believe as long as an employer has taken into consideration everything, obviously made the workplace as safe as possible, even, flex the hours. Not every city and town in this country has busy tubes, but if your employer is afraid to go on public transport, flex the hours, do everything you can. But at the end of the day, how are we going to get our economy thriving? How are we going to get people back to business? How are we going to get cafes, coffee shops, sandwich bars, small businesses back to business, back to creativity? We've got to recreate normality. And
Okay.
I think
Okay.
I just want to say at the end.
You've said so much so far, Linda. We just want to make sure that we give Paris a go. I mean, it's an interesting challenge, though, isn't it? Because as Linda said, she's clearly very passionate about this, and there are small businesses and big businesses that are struggling up and down the country. And actually, it's within the boss's remit to force someone back to work. And even if you might be nervous, if they've done everything they possibly can and you're fit and healthy, you need to get back in the office.
Well, why do you need to get back in the office? We're looking at a new normal here. We live in a digital age. And, what was just mentioned was we have to get back to how things were. No, there's no going back. There's no going back. It's always about moving forward and creating a better environment for the employees. I think, if you're talking about opportunities for people to go back into work who can work from home, people have successfully been working from home for the last 3 months. For roles where you have to be on site, that's completely different. But we're talking about jobs in the city where you have to take a 45-minute commute and your face is in the armpit of someone on the tube for 45 minutes and you're packed like a sardine and you spend 10 whole days of the entire year travelling to work. You spend a fortune on travel when you could be doing your job very efficiently with a better quality of life in your home office. In your local cafe, where you're investing your pound in the local economy on an independent coffee shop. Why do you have to go into the city, into these big conglomerate buildings to do your job? You don't. We live in a digital age. We have a lot. We're speaking to each other now on a digital platform. And most companies, if they haven't got a very agile way of working, they will have a digital strategy which will enable people to have intentional connections using technology, and that's totally viable. It gives employees less stress. It helps them to become economically healthier because they're not spending as much money traveling or having to live in zone 1, which is a huge expense. They can save the money they're spending on their zone 1 apartment and put it to their mortgage fund. We're talking about long-term sustainability here, and a digital strategy to enable people to have more flexibility is much more inclusive. It brings about a lot more employee wellness, and essentially your people are your greatest asset. If they're happier, if they're more engaged, if they have a better quality of life, they're going to produce better results. The performance is going to increase, and that essentially is going to affect your bottom line. So you have to look at it here as people. This is a people-driven decision. It's about giving your employees choice. It's about using COVID as an opportunity to shift the culture within companies, which is quite stagnant and doesn't allow for people to have flexibility and to take this opportunity.
All right, thanks, Paris. Linda, let's come back to you, because what about that point that Paris was making, that actually we've got to look at a new way of working now. We've got to look to the future. We've got to move forward. Companies have managed to adjust to a lot more of their workforce working from home. You know, if an employee came to you and said, look, I don't need to be in the office, I can work perfectly efficiently from home, would you listen to what they said?
Well, I think at the end of the day, first of all, we're talking about the whole country here. We're not just talking about London. So not everyone goes to business on a tube. So let's be clear about that. And not everyone is conducive to working at home. I believe as an employee, as an employer, I have the right to decide, as long as I've made that work environment safe, it's my business, and I have the right to decide what is the best way to run my business most efficiently. When furlough ends, there will be thousands of people out of work. And I believe that my business is run best with my employees coming into work in a safe environment. That's up to me, and I should have the right to decide, and I should have the right to tell them. If you are an employee, then you have to recognise what the man or woman running your business, what is best for their business, because if the businesses don't survive, they'll have no jobs. It's not necessarily about what's comfortable for them. And I don't believe the new normal. We had to stay at home. We were locked down because our children were not at school. We had no choice. Now we have choices. And the biggest choice this country needs to do, we need to get our economy back. Otherwise, don't worry about being at home, because you won't have a job.
Linda, what a lot of the people are saying, and they're getting in touch with us today, is saying that, you know, you might have this choice, but there is still a killer virus out there. There is a virus on the loose. This has come from Manic on Twitter. Before lockdown, there was a killer virus on the loose, no vaccine. Today, there is still a killer virus on the loose and no vaccine. Your risk is no less than it was at the beginning of March. We've just been told by Boris Johnson that we can expect potentially a second surge in 2 weeks' time.
Well, yes, you're right. There is still the virus out there, but we have to get the country moving. Otherwise, we haven't
got a vaccine yet, though, Linda. They haven't got a vaccine, so there'll be people who will be terrified about the idea that their boss is going to turn around to them and say, you get back into the office or you're going to lose your job.
Well, we have to make the environment so, are we not going to send our children back to school till we get a vaccine? We don't know when a vaccine's coming out. We have to make the environment as safe as possible. But the country will be the consequences, the financial consequences are dire. Now, obviously, we have to take into consideration people's health. We have to make workplaces safe. We have to do that. We have to make workplaces as safe as possible. We have to consider people's feelings. But at the end of the day, we have to get our economy going. Otherwise, there will be no businesses, there will be no jobs, there'll be no choice to work from home, because there just won't be any businesses. So, of course, we're in a worldwide pandemic. Things are changing day to day, and things are very difficult. But we have to try to move forward with economy and with business. We have to recreate normality. What is the new normal? Being locked down? That cannot be the new normal. Okay. We have to recreate normality, and we have to get people back to work in the safest environment, considering communication, collaboration between an employer and an employee is very, very important. But at the end of the day, when we're doing everything we can to make it as safe as possible, our employers, they have to consider the businesses.
All
because
right.
No business, there's no survival.
Thanks, Linda. Let's just have a last word from Paris. I mean, Paris, I know, you're not in the situation where a boss would be saying to you, you have to come in and work. But what would you be feeling if that was a situation where a boss turned around and said, look, all things considered, I need you to be in the office? Do you think that, this is a decision, isn't it, that employees up and down the country are potentially going to be facing?
I think it's a decision, it has to be taken as a decision for the employees. I think, at the end of the day, they've been working for the last 3 months. This isn't just like people haven't been sitting around doing nothing. Majority of people, if they haven't been furloughed, they've been working. Now, there's a way of working. A lot of, I've been working throughout the whole, lockdown period, and a lot of my colleagues have. Obviously, everyone that I know has been working. I've been working effectively. So I'm thinking, I'm speaking specifically for the opportunity for people who can work at home. Obviously, people who have to go into the office. If you're client facing, if you're in hospitality, maybe you can't work from home or work off remotely. But we have to think about the millions of jobs that are available that people can work from home, and think about people who have children. Think about people who can enter the labour market now because they don't have to be physically present. So there is another argument that actually enabling flexibility from the safety perspective, but also from working in the new normal, is going to open up the labour market to a whole host of new talent that weren't able to work before because of flexibility. Like, for example, women. We talk about wanting to get more women in business. Being able to work from home has been such a help for a lot of people. Children.
That flexibility has certainly changed things, hasn't it, considerably. Our poll that we've been running, which is whether it's you or your boss who should decide you return to the office, 61% of you think it should be down to the individual, not the boss. 39% think it should be the boss. I think it actually is the boss that has the right, but 61% of you feel it should be your decision. We're going to have to leave it there, unfortunately, but it was great to get your perspectives. Thank you, Linda, and thank you, Paris, for joining us this morning. Lots of you getting in touch on this. Alistair, and I've got a lot of friends that have reacted like this. Many of us who work from home successfully found it more productive. Work-life balance is much better. I've time to exercise, time to spend with my family, and I'm not spending £250 a month on petrol. My thoughts are go back to work 1 or 2 days a week when this is all over.
It'd be interesting to see, won't it, how businesses adapt.
Yeah.
They might not want all their workers back, and there might be a more flexible system that we can introduce moving forward that will hopefully suit everybody.